Hello, my name is Julian Pareto. I'm a technical solutions architect in Cisco's EMEA SB Partner Collaboration team. And in this module, I'm going to be talking about private peering with WebEx calling. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is why private peering with WebEx calling? And this is actually different between multi-tenant and dedicated instance. So with WebEx calling multi-tenant, the default is over the top. So private peering is purely optional, and it's really done to improve quality of experience or reliability of the connection into WebEx. We do also see some customers that, for security compliance reasons, want a private connection into WebEx for multi-tenant. On the dedicated instance side, it's actually mandatory to have private peering. Now, you could ask the question as to why is this mandatory? We do provide expressway mobile remote access with DI, so it is possible to connect in over the top. But if you look at all of the caveats associated with MRA that are listed at the bottom right of this slide, so only new phones or WebEx app and Jabber, no SIP trunks, so no local gateway possible, no third-party integrations. So all the support for devices and capabilities that make customers want to go with DI are not possible without private peering, and that's why we have made it mandatory for that. In terms of ways to connect, we have end customer models and partner models. In this module, we are going to be focusing on the end customer models. We have Edge Connect for both multi-tenant and dedicated instance. And then for dedicated instance, we also have Virtual Connect, which is GRE over IPsec over the internet. In terms of partner models, we have Private Network Connect, which is available for partners to connect into multi-tenant. And for dedicated instance, we have Partner Connect, which similarly is for select partners to connect their networks into dedicated instance. One thing to note is that peering must be ordered in CCW and incurs additional costs. So when we talk about Edge Connect and Virtual Connect for dedicated instance, there are SKUs that need to be ordered in CCW, and there is a cost associated with that. So I'm going to be focusing on Edge Connect, and Edge Connect uses Equinix Fabric, or what's also referred to as ECX, Equinix Cloud Exchange, as a way for customers to connect into WebEx. Now, we have also recently introduced support for Megaport as part of an early adopter program. I will be touching on this in a moment. But in terms of Edge Connect, we've had Equinix Fabric as the way to connect into WebEx available for a while. And what is Equinix Fabric and Edge Connect all about? So the benefits of Edge Connect are that customers can connect into WebEx with a private circuit, and so it's not over the internet. This gives them a deterministic network path, it gives them predictable and stable latency and jitter, and it gives them a guaranteed bandwidth. And we have various speed options on Edge Connect starting at 200 meg. In terms of available services, it's not only about WebEx calling, multi-tenant and dedicated instance. So actually Edge Connect started up initially for WebEx meetings. It's been available for a few years. We support also WebEx app devices and video mesh media over Edge Connect, and also WebEx Edge Audio. One thing to note is that dedicated instance does require separate Equinix Fabric VC to the other services. I will be talking about that in a short while in terms of the direction that we're going to there. Some notes on this, there are costs for the customer. There is a cost to a service provider to provide a circuit to Equinix. There's a cost from Equinix to the customer. So typically this would be renting a customer cage, paying for a Equinix Fabric port for the physical cross connect into Equinix Fabric, and then for virtual circuits across Equinix Fabric into WebEx. And then from Cisco, there is a cost for Edge Connect. So just a bit of an update on Edge Connect and some of the new connectivity offerings that we have there. So as I said, we've had Edge Connect available for a while. We support WebEx meetings calling and dedicated instance, and we've had Equinix Fabric as the connectivity provider from the customer into WebEx. I mentioned that we've recently introduced support for Megaport, so that is another option there for connectivity. We see in a lot of regions globally that Megaport does actually have a larger coverage than Equinix, and we have customers who have already peered into Megaport, so there might be a preference to go with Megaport instead. And the other thing that we are planned to come out with is what we're calling single peering for WebEx Suite customers with dedicated instance. So as I mentioned, previously, for dedicated instance, that does require separate Equinix Fabric virtual circuits or Megaport virtual circuits compared to WebEx meetings and WebEx calling multi-tenant. So we are we are going to be providing a single peering, a single set of Equinix Fabric virtual circuits for connecting to all of these services in the WebEx Suite. So in terms of these new offerings, as I mentioned, we've got the Cloud Exchange expansion with Megaport, and we've got the Edge Connect for WebEx Suite, the sort of the single peering for WebEx meetings, WebEx calling multi-tenant and dedicated instance. These are both part of an early adopter program. So if you do have any customers that you would like to position this with, then there is an early adopter request that you can go through. So you can actually request this through your Cisco Collaboration TSA, and they are able to pass this request on into the business unit to get approval. So moving on to Equinix Fabric and what Equinix Fabric is about. So, firstly, some terminology here. We have various terms, and in particular, we have physical circuit Equinix port or Equinix Fabric port and Equinix connection. So the physical circuit is the network circuit between the customer and Equinix, and obviously that can be shared by the customer for connecting to multiple cloud providers. We then have the Equinix Fabric port, which is the physical port that is used to connect between the customer cage, the customer equipment in Equinix, and the actual Equinix Fabric backbone. Again, this can be used by to connect to multiple cloud providers, multiple Cisco services as well. And then we have the Equinix connection. So this is actually a layer 2 circuit that is established across the Equinix Fabric to the cloud provider. In this case, this is WebEx. The customer actually submits this using the Equinix Fabric portal. They submit an order in that portal, and then this submission actually contains the BGP and routing information required for the cloud provider, i.e. WebEx in this case, to set up a layer 3 connection with BGP peering between the customer and WebEx. One thing to note on this is that the customer does need to connect to Equinix Fabric, so that will be a contract that the customer will have to sign with Equinix. Then Equinix is responsible for the layer 1, the cross connects from the customer to Equinix Fabric, and also the layer 2 circuits, the Equinix Fabric virtual circuits to WebEx. And then Cisco is responsible for the WebEx side of the layer 3 BGP peering. In terms of connection options to Equinix Fabric, so in terms of the way I've described things so far, that's really been the standard Equinix Fabric port scenario, where a customer would pay for a circuit from a service provider into Equinix. They would have a customer cage that they rent with their own equipment in there, and then they would have a cross connect to Equinix Fabric. Now, there are some other options. Equinix do support what's called an Equinix Fabric remote port scenario. In this case, Equinix have various NSPs, network service providers, that have actually got connectivity into Equinix Fabric, and then these NSPs are able to provide the layer 2 connectivity all the way from Equinix Fabric back into the customer network. So the customer would actually pay for a circuit over this NSP network, and they would actually order the Equinix Fabric virtual circuits from the NSP. Another option is what's called Equinix Network Edge. So in this case, Equinix actually have the possibility to deploy virtual appliances, so NFVs in Equinix. In terms of Cisco, that's actually the Catalyst 8000V that is supported here, but Equinix also support other providers like other vendors such as VMware and Palo Alto. And in this case, the customer is actually able to rent a virtual appliance like the Catalyst 8000V and then connect in using different types of transport into that network edge. And one of the options there is actually internet. So for example, this would actually allow a customer to connect in over the internet using Viptela SD-WAN and terminate that SD-WAN in a Catalyst 8000V in Equinix Network Edge and then connect through to Equinix Fabric that way. In terms of the Edge Connect data center locations globally, as you can see there, there is a presence globally. So this effectively maps in onto what Equinix have with Equinix Fabric. So the smaller diagram there is the Equinix Fabric footprint globally. So the whole idea here is that a customer can connect to any Equinix Fabric location and then order virtual circuits across Equinix Fabric to one of the Edge Connect locations. The way this works is that for WebEx calling multi-tenant and for WebEx meetings, a customer can connect to any Edge Connect location globally. They're effectively connecting to the WebEx backbone, and they can then through there connect to any of the WebEx services. For dedicated instance, you need to connect to both Edge Connect locations that have got dedicated instance in a region. And then just a note on Megaport. So this is showing the Edge Connect locations, and as you'll see here, there's we do have Megaport locations as well that have now been enabled for Edge Connect, and the plan is to expand this. So as you can see, not all of the Edge Connect locations have got the have got Megaport connectivity at the moment, but the plan is to roll that out more extensively. So I'm going to move on to how these Equinix Fabric virtual circuits are ordered. Now, this would normally be done by the customer, but obviously, if as a partner you are providing this as a managed service to the customer, then this is something that you might actually do yourself. But it's certainly worth understanding how this works, so you can explain this to a customer. So obviously, the customer would already be connected to Equinix Fabric. They would have an account on the Equinix Fabric portal. And then what they would do is they would select Cisco as a service provider to connect to, because in this case, Cisco is acting as a cloud service provider for the customer. When they select Cisco, there will and select WebEx, there will be a couple of options. You can see that on the bottom right. So there's Cisco WebEx and there's Cisco WebEx calling dedicated instance. So Cisco WebEx is connecting to the WebEx global backbone, and this is used for WebEx calling multi-tenant and WebEx meetings. If a customer wants to connect to dedicated instance, then they would select Cisco WebEx calling dedicated instance. The customer would then go and select the location and the ports that they are connecting from. And then they would also select the destination that they are connecting to. So in this example, this is for dedicated instance. They've selected Americas, and we have Silicon Valley and Dallas as the two Edge Connect locations to connect to. There's then a very important page that the customer has to complete, which has got connection information. And this is, this information is used by Cisco to then authorize the connection and also establish the layer 3 peering over that. So, some key fields that the customer has to fill out. There's Cisco purchase order number. So this will be the PO number from the CCW order, which has Edge Connect in it. And then we have some BGP information that needs to be entered. So the first thing is the WebEx router IP address. So the customer is actually providing the WebEx side of the connection, and also their side of the connection, the IP address and mask there. Then the customer also has to provide a list of advertised prefixes. So these are the prefixes they will be advertising to WebEx. These routes will be public for multi-tenant, and then for dedicated instance, these will be this will be a default route. The customer will also have to provide their BGP AS number and optionally a BGP password. Then the customer would select the connection speed on Equinix Fabric, and then finally submit the order. And at this point, this order would go to Equinix and would get passed through to Cisco, so that Cisco can actually get the connection and the layer 3 BGP peering set up over to the customer. So how does WebEx calling actually work over Edge Connect? Now, there's a lot of information on this slide, and really, I would recommend that you use this as a bit of a reference side that you can use. Some of the key points to be aware of is that for WebEx calling, multi-tenant, and WebEx meetings, because this is public cloud, the customer is connecting using public and provider independent IPv4 addressing. So this typically means that the customer will have to NAT at the edge of their network, because most customers will be using private addressing. The dedicated instance is actually private cloud. The customer will be connecting using private addressing. We do not support NAT between the customer network and DI. So, in this case, Cisco is providing the subnet for the dedicated instance applications, and the customer will advertise a default route to WebEx. In terms of redundancy, we do have various redundancy options on the WebEx calling multi-tenant side. We support active, passive, local redundancy, active, local redundancy, and also active, and active, passive redundancy with geographically dispersed Edge Connect circuits. The key point here is that as soon as on the multi-tenant side, as soon as you want redundancy, then there is going to be some additional cost there. So for active, passive, local redundancy, there is a redundancy option that can be ordered with the Edge Connect license. This is actually at a lower price. If the customer wants active, local redundancy, or they want to have sort of geo-redundant Edge Connect circuits, then they will have to pay for 2 lots of Edge Connect licenses, as well as obviously 2 lots of Equinix Fabric virtual circuits. For dedicated instance, we actually have a special a special offer there, which allows a customer to just order 1 Edge Connect license with the redundancy option, and then this allows them to have a single Equinix Fabric virtual circuit to each dedicated instance DC in a region. So this actually allows them, if they want to have geographic redundancy, connect to each dedicated instance DC with a separate Equinix Fabric virtual circuit, and they're just paying for 1 full Edge Connect license plus the redundancy option. And then, in terms of how this actually all works in practice, over Edge Connect. So in this diagram, you can see here, we have the customer network. The customer is connecting over Equinix Fabric into WebEx. In this case, they have a NAT pool on the edge of the network because they're using private addressing internally, and they need to use public addressing to connect to WebEx. So in this case, the way this works, this is just showing a subset of WebEx routes, but we will actually advertise all of the WebEx routes through the BGP peering into the customer network. The customer would redistribute those into their network. The customer would advertise their public prefixes from their NAT pool into WebEx, so that we know how to connect back to the customer. And this means then that any IP routes that are on the WebEx backbone that a customer needs to get to, rather than going over the internet, they will go over this private circuit, over Equinix Fabric using Edge Connect. Now, for dedicated instance, it works a bit differently. So for dedicated instance, because this is UCM as the application, we do not support NAT into UCM. We're actually connecting using private addressing. So on the dedicated instance side, we're actually using public addresses that belong to Cisco that are used only for dedicated instance. These are not advertising on the internet. So there's no risk of overlap with any addresses that the customer is using. And what we do is the customer will have these Edge Connect circuits to both dedicated instance data centers in the region. In this case, this is San Jose and Dallas. So these routes will be advertised into the customer network. The way this works is that a /25 is advertised from /25 specific to that data center is actually advertised through through that connection, and then there's a backup route which is a /24 that is also advertised. So if one of the connections goes down, the customer network will reconverge, and we'll see a path through the other data center to the other applications in the other data center. So this example, if the connection to San Jose goes down, then there will be a backup route available over the connection to Dallas, and then traffic will route through the Dallas data center up into the San Jose data center. So what this means is, even if a connection goes down, there won't be a failover of applications because the traffic can reroute. So these prefixes are advertised into the customer network, and then the customer will advertise a default route back into dedicated instance, because anything that is not specific to that customer dedicated instance should be routed out to the customer network. Now, how do we deal with a customer that has both dedicated instance and WebEx meetings and WebEx calling multi-tenant, and want Edge Connect into both of these? So today's solution is actually separate Equinix Fabric virtual circuits, effectively separate Edge Connect connections, and the reason for this is that we need NAT with when connecting to the public cloud, whereas for dedicated instance it has to be private. So these are effectively separate circuits with different routes being advertised as described before. But what we have on the roadmap, and as I mentioned before, we have this new solution, which is called single peering for WebEx Suite customers with dedicated instance. So this is on the roadmap for this year. It is an early adopter now. So as I mentioned earlier, you can request through your Cisco Collaboration TSA to get a customer on the early adopter program. But in this case, what we will be doing is allowing for a single Edge Connect connection over a single Equinix Fabric virtual circuit to be used for all of these services. And the way this will actually work is that the connection will actually be to dedicated instance as described before. So again, we're using private addresses over that. But what we will also do is also advertise all of the WebEx public global backbone routes over that same connection. So inside the customer network, they will be able to route traffic through that through that Edge Connect connection to get to the WebEx public routes. Now, the way that the traffic will return is that we will be providing a NAT pool of public IPs for any traffic that is going to the public cloud. So any traffic towards WebEx meetings and WebEx calling multi-tenant, the customer private addresses will actually be NATed inside the WebEx cloud, and therefore the global backbone for WebEx will be able to have a return path back into the customer network, using these public addresses. So that's Edge Connect finished. I just wanted to finish off with some detail on Virtual Connect for dedicated instance. So this is an option we have specifically for dedicated instance for customers that do not want to invest in circuits and private peering using Equinix Fabric or Megaport. So in this case, a customer can actually connect over the internet. But again, because we can't support NAT into dedicated instance, what we do is we actually use GRE over IPsec tunnels to get the traffic into dedicated instance. So these effectively secure tunnels over the internet. What we do here is actually have a point-to-point GRE over IPsec tunnel into each dedicated instance data center in the region. So these are 2 point-to-point tunnels in each region. Now, one thing to note here is that because these are point-to-point tunnels, we would certainly recommend that a customer have these distributed over sort of 2 hub sites. That's not mandatory, but we'd obviously recommend that for geo redundancy. This does mean that any other customer sites will have to route their traffic through the head end of that tunnel to get into dedicated instance. So obviously that traffic would be over the customer private network. So you do need to really consider the customer requirements and the design to look at whether Virtual Connect is going to be suitable for that customer. Cisco does actually rate limit the bandwidth per tunnel to 250 megabits per second. So you just need to consider the customer media flows. Obviously, with dedicated instance, any media between devices that are registered on the customer private network will route directly between those devices. But there will be cases where the media will flow through the tunnels into dedicated instance, and the examples are cloud connected PSTN traffic will route through there. If there's any calls between WebEx calling multi-tenant and dedicated instance, that will route over these tunnels as well. Any integrated audio, so any WebEx meetings audio traffic from dedicated instance registered endpoints and WebEx meetings will go over there, and also on-premise registered endpoints to MRA endpoints, that traffic will flow over these tunnels as well. So it's really important to understand the customer requirements and the media flows to decide whether this is a suitable solution for the customer. And that's all. So thank you very much for tuning into this session.